But there is no doubt these things are working for a lot of people, and that is hope, and hope should be shared with people in need for sure.
Yeah. And this brand that I have on my hat, it's called Atta, live Atta, like one day at a time. And I think that we continuously take one step at a time towards a
Like that.
a better understanding of all these things that are going on. And I think it's forward progress, right?
It sure is, and that's where I met the Wiz. That's where I met Wiz Buckley. He's a fighter pilot,
Yeah.
veteran, runs No Fallen Heroes
Great guy.
Foundation, and he's one of the people we donated to as well. And he's one of the people, his group, because they were. I think Marcus Luttrell actually was helped me. He's good friends with Marcus Luttrell and knew that, and a lot of our selecting organizations to donate to was based on veterans that we had heard firsthand who had benefited from these certain therapies and things. So that was where we put our money behind, and we did cool stuff too. We did stuff with we did $100,000 for canines, basically canines for warriors
That's
or
awesome.
people that were supporting. There was one group that was bringing the Belgian Malinois who were in service in Afghanistan and Iraq back to the United States. But obviously, you can't just put them with normal families because those dogs have been through war, literally.
Right.
So putting them together with veterans suffering PTS is turns out to be pretty magical because animals are, a great way to the spirit and really has helped out. So that was one of the organizations. But we did a lot of good stuff. We digress a bit, but I just think that
There's no digressing on this one. Like
it's
it's my podcast and we're chatting, so there's no digressing, brother.
there's many layers. That's right. It's very interesting seeing how, from the medical to the military to this, the social. There's so many different crossovers. I love it.
You know what I love about this platform is it gives people a chance to talk about the mental health aspect of it, the bridging the gap between commercial, the military, and the community that I am so passionate about supporting, which is such a huge fabric of the DNA of who I am and what I am. I mean, I joined the military when I was 17,
I
and
know it's amazing. It's
and
amazing. It's amazing.
and it, it's like that's hard to like unthread, we'll call it, of who you are. That's formative years of your life. And so I think that the real stories that we share here, and I've gotten a lot of comments from people about telling these stories and facilitating these conversations are powerful. So I don't stop them. I
Sure.
encourage it. So when you say, "Oh, we're no, like this is why I'm doing this is so people can hear the real of it.
Yeah, well,
And
it's a small world, and I think that there's a lot of connections out there. And if you listen to them, it's also something that's important too. Is like these connections that continuously pop up. It kind of tells you that you're on the right path. I think that's part of it, or you're be aware of where you are as you're leading your own life. We're all leading our own lives, and we're all trying to be successful. We're all trying to be happy.
yep,
Those aren't always possible in life because sometimes you're unhappy, sometimes you're unsuccessful. But one bad day doesn't wake does one bad day does not make a bad life. And I think that's one thing when you are in a trough versus a peak, be mindful of that there is help out there. Be patient with yourself, love yourself. If you have the capacity to love yourself first because I can tell you firsthand, if you try to love everybody else and not yourself, you're going to be hollow. And that is something that I had to go through. Me and you talked about it before the show started. I think about my journey. I've been in the operating room for 20 plus years. Spent 8 years doing some trauma work, and some of that was very traumatic. And you know, while we were treating one of our veterans, this great man, he's since passed, but he's a World War II veteran named Lester Tenney. He was basically signed up, enlisted before World War II broke out. Was supposed to be out of the military in January 1942, but when Pearl Harbor hit on December 7th, 1941, he was stuck in the Philippines. They fought hard. They were ordered to surrender. He was a POW that survived the Bataan Death March. If anybody doesn't know what that is, I encourage you to look it up. It's important for all Americans to know what that is, but it's 75 miles of brutality to get to a prison camp. Not everybody survived. In fact, thousands did not. And he did get to there, but then he was taken on a slave ship to Japan and witnessed across the harbor from his slave labor camp the dropping of the first atomic bomb. He witnessed it with his own eyes. He was, 5 miles away or whatever, but he could see the flash. He saw it. Ended up coming home and tried to rebuild his life. And Lester was going to be offered a formal apology by the country of Japan, but he wasn't sick. It wasn't healthy enough. His heart was too sick to make that journey. So that's where he got online and found this experimental thing back in 2009 or 10 called TAVR, transcatheter aortic valve replacement. And he got his heart fixed by us and went on to get that apology, lived 8 more years, became an incredibly influential person to me. And he wrote 2 books. One's My Hitch in Hell, about his exploits as a soldier and POW and slave. And the other one was called The Courage to Remember, about PTS. And I was, I love Lester, so I was going to read both books. And when I read The Courage to Remember, I was like, wow, that's me. That's me. That's me. There's like a lot of this. Maybe, is it possible? I've never been in the military. Could I have PTS? And sure enough, you don't have to be on a battlefield to experience trauma. The worst day of your life is the worst day of your life. And as resilient as humans are, sometimes some things get stuck and we can't process things. And if we get stuck for too long, then it almost puts us into this gray category of living in black and white, where you can't feel and you can't love and you can't be your best. And it's hard to shake. It's hard to shake, and you don't even know it a lot of the time. But I went through that about 8 years ago myself, to really try to fix myself. And I'm grateful to Lester for his book that gave me the awareness, and for his attitude that gave me the courage to persevere. And because of it, it's helped me and my family and my friends. I'm a better son, father, husband, everything that I can be. Still a work in progress, like we all are. But
Yeah.
it's helped me a lot. That's where a lot of my passion for helping veterans with PTS comes from. It's from Lester. That's the full circle back. And I think that we all, as humans, go through a lot of things in life sometimes, and we need help. And there's a lot of ways to get that help. And it's important when you're struggling to get that help.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's okay to let your guard down.
It's very
And
okay. It's very okay to let your guard down. It's hard to do because you've been used to not letting it down, but it's the door to salvation.
yeah, for those of you that are new to this episode and come in, I've had my own personal challenges. I've shared some of it, and it's hard to talk about, but it's okay to share and stop, breathe, and ask for help.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I got the courage to go down that road today, but it's real. Make sure you pick up the phone and call somebody, and
That's right.
it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, or
No, we're
that
all human.
it's one of those things that uh, some people get lost. I'm gonna say that, like, you sometimes it may feel like you get lost in your own head, like and it's a panic moment, is how I would describe it. But man, you're like, just know you can persevere, right? Like, as you said, like, don't take the moment or the day or the days and calculate that as the summation of everything.
Well
Zoom
said.
out and look at it in the context of everything and say, this is just a moment, right? And
Absolutely right.
So I love what you said there. It's true. That that kind of leads me into what we've talked about the other questions just naturally through the course of this that I had wanting to ask you, but I can never say
You
this word right.
Well, real quickly on the last point too, you said like reach out for help when you're if you're struggling. That's to everybody listening, right? We all have friends, we all have our support groups, but also listen when you're called. Maybe you've got a friend that calls you up. Remember, nobody fakes being depressed. Everybody, if you're gonna fake anything, you fake being okay.
Mm-hmm.
So listen to your if you're a good friend or family member, listen to that friend or family member. Maybe they're a first responder, maybe they're ex-military, maybe they work in healthcare, maybe they're just having a rough time. Listen carefully and help those folks out because people do not fake being depressed. People fake being okay, and that's something that I think we all need to be as people that help in our support groups. We need to be listening for people reaching out for real help because sometimes it's there and it's just ignored or washed or under. So if somebody's reaching out, listen. I'm,
Yeah, and that's awesome, and that was the impetus of I created a coffee company because of it, right? Like, stop, pause, think, sit down with somebody and just talk. And
that's right. That's what
and
Pillars of Valor is all about, right?
yeah, man, it's
Because pillars, that's right. We're all pillars in our group, right? Everybody's got a support group in there, and are we always listening? Are we always doing our best? Some of us we're not. It's okay, but try to be as good as you can. Be your best self when you can.
yeah, and the dark roast coffee that I created, the name for it's called Courage. And yeah, sometimes you need courage to get through that dark moment. So that's the metaphorical of it. I wasn't gonna go there and plug it, but I appreciate you saying that.
I love coffee. That's the
Uh,
hardest thing to do without on the island was no coffee. That
I
was the worst part about.
I could,
Everybody's like, "What was the worst part of being on the island for?" And I mean, I did lose 30 pounds. It was pretty hungry times, but I'll tell you,
dude, you got
coffee.
ripped.
I got ripped.
You were
In fact,
like, you're like, look at these guns.
a funny story. We'll change directions in a funny way. So, knowing that I was going to come back from Survivor on June 1st, I knew I was going to be super skinny. Okay, assuming I went to the end, which spoiler alert, yes I did. So I knew I was going to be shredded, like as ripped as I was going to be since probably high school. So my wife and I put on the calendar a Las Vegas weekend. We got a bunch of friends together and we're doing a pool party, and we had that on for I think it was June 27th. I got back on June 1st, and it took me a couple weeks just to figure out my body back. But yeah, it was great, man. It was the last time my abs are ever going to see sunlight.
At least with a group of people, right?
That's right.
That's awesome.